Yeah, I was just saying like we're like Rome's like a really what I was getting really interested in recently was like the like Roman like tribune of the plebs and things like this. I think we need a tribune of the plebs. That would be great. That's effectively what people were trying to do with Occupy, was effectively a tribune of
What
the plebs, which is like creating a senate to like elect like the people's representatives to like kind of circumvent Congress.
this is a really this is a very like how should I put it? Non-Christian thing to say, but I have to play the satanic devil's advocate. So I saw this theory once that the story of Christianity was a kind of
Yeah, this is a Caesar's Christ that it
yeah,
was
yeah,
created. Yeah,
that's
yeah,
the
I know
one.
this.
That's the one.
There's some parts of that. There's some parts of that which are like kind of true, and some parts that are not. It's actually I've been really invested, spent years looking at the early Christian apocrypha and the changes to specific passages and gospels and like letters, epistles, and like which things are left out, etc. Because there is this like early civil war in the church over where like it was going to go, you know?
Yeah.
And a big part of that was what's their family? That's a whole you've read the book, right? So it's what is it? It's not Diocletian, is it? Fuck, what's the name? There's like a family that one of the Roman patriarchal families that were like early Christians, and yeah, and like there's like people who think that they're connected to Paul and things like that. I've gone down like all the rabbit holes. It's kind of hard to tell. New Testament scholarship and this sort of stuff is constantly in a flux because we keep finding more stuff, and then it's like and it's like super political, right? To like do a sort of reinterpretation in light of like new evidence, or to try to posit sort of a continuity of like what parties were involved here and writing which parts, because like the documentary record is fragmented and we don't even have access to all of it because there's so much shit the Vatican has.
Yeah, I mean I just find it very strange how the martyrdom of Caesar has been so like underemphasized. Like that was crazy how he was martyred for being a champion of the people, and then there was an entire cult of Caesar that was created after. His last name became the title of the emperors of Rome afterwards, and it's like I feel like the mythology of that, like what happened to that? That's like a really big story, right? I know that there was Shakespeare's Julius Caesar, and that's what most people know the story for, but it's so weird how that mythology has just never.
Well, it's because Caesarism came on to like take this sort of sense of like the way that the Enlightenment would read Caesar is as an
A despot.
a as a despot who's
Yeah.
appealing to like basically like the lumpens to seize like arbitrary power and like take people's properties and things like this.
Yeah.
That's how they would have interpreted it.
I was really I was so sad when I saw when I found out that Rosa Luxemburg used to operate under the pen name Junius after Brutus, right? And I was like,
I
oh, come
no,
on.
yeah. Well, there's also a kind of civic mythology in a way, connecting and kind of conflating together in a way. Brutus of Troy with Brutus helps kill Caesar
Yeah.
in the founding of Britain, like as in like Britain, like Britain. Like Brutus is one of the ancestral like mythological figures of the British. And like there's a lot of people who took the Roman Republic as the model to go by, and
Yeah,
they
that
saw
that
the
was the
empire. Like, yeah,
foundation. That was the neoclassical myth, was the return to
it's
Rome.
because it's also like the huge influence of like Cicero on
Yeah.
medieval pedagogy. Like Cicero was taken. Like it's kind of funny compared to like what Cicero was actually like,
He
but
was an
they took a
asshole.
like yeah, he was a. I said he's like a hedge fund guy because he really
Yeah.
was. He was invested in all these like early like trade corporations. Yeah,
Cicero
it's
was
kind of
like
funny.
a shit lib.
Well, this is what's funny is that it's because you could say that we can see this more now when we read it, where it's like, well, obviously we like Julius Caesar, but it's because we're actually closer to like Rome than they were, right? So
Yeah.
like they were reading these things and they were like not like they didn't even. This is at the time where they still didn't really they didn't really understand what a mass sport spectacle would look like what the purpose of the Colosseums was. There's a whole kind of mythology they had where they interpreted like that they were just like, people like being killed like on stage and things like this. And that's like all that they did at the Colosseums. There's like these theaters of cruelty, but like it's probably much more like that they were like carnivals, which is what they were called. And that they had it wasn't necessarily that the gladiators were even killing each other. Maybe they were like more like WWF guys, they're like professional fighters and things like this. And that like this sort of mass sporting fandom didn't exist in the times when people were romanticizing the Roman Republic. So they couldn't even understand like what the Roman Empire was like, because we're actually closer to the Roman Empire in the levels of like civic infrastructure and like the size of the empire and like the way the administration and things work than these British people were.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird how Michael Parenti was the first to make the connection between Caesar and, uh, like, I guess left wing populism or whatever. And I think the context was Hugo Chavez, right? As Chavez was the Caesar of our time, He was the ultimate example of that. Like, you want to know who was Julius Caesar? Just look at Hugo Chavez. Both were Latin speaking, so that's a good addition. But yeah,
This whole thing is really what's Caesar? Caesar's about the forgiveness of debts. That's how he gained his meat. Like that's what it was all about. He ran on forgiveness of debts basically in pretty much all ways. Like even when like he beat someone, he would forgive them, and he'd show and they would join him. Showed benevolence. This is way to go. There's no like the sort of the problem with like internet politics, or the way people do this, is they think that they need to find a particular position kind of abstractly, and they'll hold that position and they'll pull everyone to that position somehow. But that's not really how it should work. Like in a more like pragmatic sense, you want to go out and just start you replace the existing order by creating one that's better within the one that exists. So I think that's like the real project, like a third party, right? If you want to do like a Caesarism, you're not going to do this uh, in the structures that are laid out for you. You actually have to make.
I don't know if we can have a Caesarism in the U.S. I think Trump was probably, maybe in 2016 at least, he was very close to this, I guess.
You could. I
Yeah.
have like, I mean, I'm just speculating here, like coming up with things, but I thought of like the notion of like have elections ostensibly, but they don't do very good. So what if we ran our own election to elect a candidate, but what it was this sort of like tournament structure of people actually like debating on issues or whatever, and we kind of like outsource this to the people themselves, like create a more democratic electoral system that actually reflects, instead of people
You
picking
mean
between
to decide the leader of the People's Party?
a tribune of the plebes.
Ah, interesting. That's actually really, yeah, a tribune of the
Because then
people. Yeah.
you're actually building the authority of the party, because if people are participating in this, like, right, and this, and like it's building the intelligence of it too, because you're seeing like what is like the most salable platform that could like attract the most
Come to
people.
think of it, I don't know why people didn't make the connection to Caesarism more in the beginning, because if you think about it, the whole concept of the proletariat was this kind of like, it was a kind of teasing. It was a kind of like challenge to the neoclassical Roman citizen as like this model of republican virtue. Who were saying, "Oh, you're talking about the citizen, the French citizen of the universal republic, whatever." Well, just like in ancient Rome, the citizen too becomes divided, and that's the primary contradiction. We have the universal citizen. Sure, classes are eliminated formally, but now we have the proletarians and so on and so on. But
It's all about the landed
the fact
property.
of the Roman proletariat precipitates the end of the Republic. And I think you can reread that and say the existence of the proletariat precipitates the end of the bourgeois formal state and its sublation into some kind of empire, right? But not empire in the bad sense, but just in the sense of like a return to like a rule that is legitimated by something more than just the form of the state itself.